Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Joel Beya, and we are back for another 5 Reacts. We got here my guy, one of my absolute favorites, great reporter, Mr. Ben Jacobs. How you doing, man? You good?
It's great to be here. You know, I'm live from Dublin and I'm wearing a shirt, which is not to be formal for 5, which has a nice ring to it. It's because I was at a wedding yesterday.
Nice. Did you enjoy yourself? Did you get the drinks in?
First time in Dublin, and now I am feeling it.
Wow. Good stuff. But Ben, I want to talk to you about Manchester United and Qatar. I mean, you know, we've heard it was happening at this time. Rio heard it was happening at this time. I mean, it's honestly no, I don't think anyone's doing it on purpose. Definitely not on the 5 element side of things, but there just seems no news. Some people reckon it's already done. What are you hearing on your side?
Yeah, I think multiple parties are still in the race, and as a result, it can't be 100% done. And it's also about when we get public clarity, because behind the scenes, both groups have effectively been asked to get to the brink of victory. So the reason why I think we're hearing so many conflicting reports and it appears to be very slow and uncertain is because both groups are being asked to undertake responsibilities of effectively preferred bidders, but they're not in an exclusive period. And both groups feel that they are 6 feet from the finishing line, but they're worried that 1, the other group is only 6 inches from the finishing line, and 2, the finishing line will be moved by the Glazers at any point because they haven't yet shown their hand. So it's a very atypical situation. And I think this is why we're hearing so much noise. And both groups have felt quite positive about their position, of course, because they're undertaking tasks that you wouldn't normally do unless you were going to win. But then they look to their right and they see that there's the other group still in the race. There's the minority investors still on standby, and there's 6 siblings. And the S in Glazers has always been very important in all of this. It's not necessarily a unified family position. So we have to get clarity, but in a bizarre way, even though it's frustrating for Manchester United fans, because the window's open and because there would still be a completion process that can take weeks. This window is not necessarily an entire write-off, but it's heading that way, and things would have to move extremely fast to alter the situation. And that's simply because even if someone won right now, as we're speaking, they would still ultimately have to go from winning to then starting the actual acquisition process. So I think that's what people don't always get. There is the offer, non-exclusive. Then sometimes there is a preferred bidder, and that is exclusive negotiation. And we have to be very clear about that, because I think sometimes people confuse preferred bidder with winner. So preferred bidder traditionally means exclusive negotiation. And as a consequence, you've not won, you've just been picked to enter into final negotiation. Then you could effectively have winner or something signed, and that would basically be somebody is going to proceed with you subject to the acquisition process. And if either group back out at that stage, there might be break clauses, but then you say, okay, we aim to acquire, but we still have to get all of the various approvals necessary, and they take time. Sheikh Jassim would have to delist the public shares because he wants 100% of the club. You'd have to pass the Premier League owners and directors test. You would obviously have to transfer the funds. And each of those things can take a small amount of time or a large amount of time, but the window ultimately closes in around 6 weeks. So it's going to be very difficult now for anybody to come in and influence that window. And Manchester United have moved anyway, and they're obviously trying to get Onana over the line. Mounts come in, Højlund remains a target. So I think the situation is still unclear, and that will frustrate fans because they just want to know who's won. But we can't be ahead of the process or the 6 Glazers' brains, and that's the frustration covering it as a journalist. And now I think people realise that they're a bit sick and tired of being told there's a deadline. They just want to wait. And this is the reality of takeovers. They're not transfers. And unfortunately, because this has been so public, people are looking at it in transfer terms. Who's the front runner? Who's going to win? When will there be an announcement? And I can tell you categorically that an announcement will not come from Rain Group, as is often referenced by people or asked by people. They won't make any statement, even after there's a resolution. Any announcement will come either via a group, formally, maybe because they've not won. That's quite traditional. Or it will come via Manchester United. It will be via the club. They will issue a statement if they proceed with a group via the club, probably co-signed by a successful group if one is picked. So that's the thing to look out for next. And before that, there's likely to be board approval needed as well. So it is still going to take time, but that doesn't mean that it's not advancing behind the scenes.
So do you think that the Glazers generally have an intent to sell? Because sometimes I wonder.
Well, I've always been told that they're determined sellers. All 6 siblings are determined sellers. So that would suggest that it's only about money. Even staying is about money. It's not about sentiment. It's about feeling that the club will be worth more in the future than now. So this is about number, not anything else regarding attachment. Attachment is linked to number as well. It's a business decision. That's not to say they don't want the club to succeed, but given the relationship between the Glazers and the fan base, they're also well aware that staying would be highly unpopular and some even say untenable. So I've been told many times by sources close to the selling side that the issue with Qatar is simply the fact that over the course of the process, not necessarily now, but over the course of the process, they've misrepresented their number. They've inflated their number. And many sources have said that had they actually bid what they briefed they bid, they would have already won. So this is why I think that Qatar are growing in confidence, because they believe that if they hit whatever the magic number is, and that might require games and another bid, but Qatar have always said it's a final offer, take it or leave it. So now we have to wait and see. But if Qatar have hit or do hit the magic number and are ready legally with their vehicle, then they remain positive. But at the same time, Ratcliffe is saying to the Glazers, I'll give you whatever you want. I'll buy the 69%. I'll buy 50%. I'll let 2 of you stay. I'll let however many of you stay. We'll negotiate terms on when you leave and if you're obligated to leave and if I'm buying you out and it's at this date for this price, or whether you're going at another date and it's for another price. He's bending over to make a deal in any way he can to make this about what's the most flexible deal for the Glazers. So Jassim and Ratcliffe are very different. And I think the Glazers are having to weigh up effectively the same question as right at the beginning, which is, do all 6 want to go? Or do 4 want to go and 2 want to stay? But ultimately, it's going to come down to one thing. And this has always been the case. And that's money. And if Qatar feel they're losing, are they going to go up again? They say no, but they said no after April the 28th and they made a 4th bid. They said no after the 4th bid and they made a 5th bid. So this is the competitive tension. And this is why you don't put anyone in an exclusive period, because you don't get the competitive tension and the highest possible number unless you keep it non-exclusive. And remember, Rain Group's job is not to communicate with you or me. Rain's Group's sole job contractually is to get the Glazers the highest possible price.
Ben, Declan Rice, there's still a hold up. What's actually going on?
It's all just lawyers. There's nothing to be concerned about. The deal has been done for quite some time in terms of the player side. Obviously, the negotiation was quite lengthy. And now it's about Arsenal lawyers checking everything in terms of the paperwork. And this is normal. It's a huge deal for Arsenal. It's a club record number. And as a consequence, the thoroughness, as I understand it, from a legal and administrative point of view, has come on Arsenal's side. But there's still full confidence that they will be able to get it over the line in the next 24, 48 hours, to the point where Rice will be an Arsenal player in time to travel abroad for Arsenal's pre-season tour.
Lots of deals happening in Saudi at the moment. But look, man, I'll be honest with you. I don't quite understand, not only number one, where they've come from, but how they're getting these deals done. We're hearing random prices like Jordan Henderson, 20 mil, which is a lot Liverpool will be getting back, but then it's 700k a week. How are they funding this? How is this happening? What's the hoo-ha with the SPL basically? I know you're the man to tell us what's actually happening.
Well, the salaries are sometimes inflated, and this is happening very publicly because Saudi Arabia are making a song and dance. And this is the first part of a strategy that will lead up to 2030. And it's both short-term opportunism and also a power move, but also a long-term venture. And that's what makes it so intriguing. And when I talk to industry insiders, they very much feel like the Saudi Professional League is here to stay and that this is just wave one. So everyone compares it to the Chinese Super League, but that had all kinds of politics and eventually funding issues, tax issues. The Saudi Pro League are quite prepared to be patient. So some of the targets they can't get now, they'll be back for in 2024 or beyond. And what also makes it different is that there are mandated agents working on behalf of both the league and also PIF, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, who represent 4 of the clubs. So we're not just talking about a player and their agent. There are new agents and intermediaries that are working either directly with leagues or clubs. And that allows those agents to go to, say, Chelsea or Liverpool and effectively treat that club like a supermarket. And if they go to the club first, like in the case of Chelsea, they'll say, we want 4 or 5 of your players. What's possible? And then they'll allocate them to clubs as long as there's player buy-in. And in the case of Liverpool, they've gone to the players first with both Jordan Henderson and Fabinho. And what we're seeing is Saudi Arabia not take no for an answer. So in a number of cases now, Henderson included, the player has effectively turned down the offer. And within a matter of hours or days, that offer has been doubled or tripled or quadrupled. And this allows for pulling power. And it's a snowball effect ultimately, because once you get 5, it's easier to get 10, and then it's easier to get 20 and 30 and 40. So we are going to see stars, not just at the big 4, but other Saudi clubs as well. Al Ittifaq and Steven Gerrard is obviously one of them, but keep an eye on Al Shabab as well. Alexander Lacazette might be one to watch there. And then on top of the players, we're going to see infrastructure changes, better marketing, better communications, television rights sold, including for English language. So watch this space, because the Saudi Pro League means business.
So you're talking about all these different players coming, etc. Steven Gerrard, is he given a particular budget? Like, okay, cool, like in the English league, and they say, listen, this is what you have. Who do you want? Are they picking the players for him? What is actually going on? Because I'm not accusing him of this, but it almost sounded like it was one of his mates that's coming across. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I didn't quite understand. Out of all the players, no disrespect, Jordan Henderson's done a great job, but why him? How is it actually working in terms of identifying players?
Well, the talent ID is done by a variety of people. Obviously, each club does actually have their own recruitment department, but now we have these broader agents that are effectively mandated by the Saudi Pro League. And then when you bring in Gerrard, you use that pulling power. And by using that pulling power, it's natural that he would have a direct route to Henderson, a friend of his who he knows really well. So the manager does play a big part, but they're not necessarily sitting in a club office with a club recruitment manager. There are allocated targets that come from effectively the Ministry of Sport that then trickle down, and that budget is signed off. So it works a bit backwards. It's not to say that the clubs can't sign a player and request the budget, but usually what happens is there's a list of players and the clubs may express an interest in those players. And then from there, if the funding is signed off, they can proceed. So you actually see Saudi deal makers move first alongside intermediaries, and then the club officials, if it looks like it's happening, flying in later to kind of do the ceremony, the handshakes, the final negotiation. So Gerrard is involved, and it's exactly the same with Nuno as well, who's at the Saudi champions Al Ittihad. He was very important in signing Jota from Celtic for 25 million. He's also the one pushing for Fabinho. So the managers have been brought in to have that power and say, because they're respected names, but they're not the ones that are made directly aware of the budget. Actually, the budget is a little bit more flexible. I was told that there is 17 billion pounds to spend between now and 2030. And effectively that will be allocated 17 billion. And that will be allocated based on need, based on desire, based on who's succeeding at the time, based on who's potentially in this new expanded World Cup, Club World Cup that is coming. So there's lots of different variables here, but Gerrard and the managers will be one of them. And this is why we're seeing big names. Christophe Gaultier is the latest that's been linked. Gerrard and Fowler are only about 15 miles apart. Fowler's managing in the second division, but that's a big club because it's backed by Aramco. And as a consequence, when they get it right and get promoted, they could be a player as well within the Saudi Pro League.
So what is the actual end goal? We know that in 2030, there's always been this talk about bidding for the World Cup, but what are they actually trying to achieve with splashing all this money? Are they trying to be the biggest league in the world, or are they just having a little bit of fun? What's going on?
It's certainly more than a little bit of fun. I think that reliance is on player power. So with the Super League, it was about established clubs breaking away and challenging the FIFA model. This is within the FIFA family. It's within the context of the Club World Cup. It might be in the context of the 2030 World Cup, but this is about Saudi clubs saying, we've got a football culture, but perhaps it doesn't extend beyond the Middle East and North Africa in terms of fan base and commercial opportunities and visibility. So the aim is to rely on players and how younger audiences are loyal to those players. So we'll follow them to Saudi Arabia, even if it is a Ronaldo leaving Manchester United and ending up at Al Nassr. He brings the fan base with them. And with that fan base, you get global visibility, and that allows you to make more money and put eyeballs and therefore use sport for various strategic reasons. So cynics will say that there's an element of sports washing to it, but we should point out that Saudi Arabia have got a Vision 2030. And in that Vision 2030, the sports strategy is about bringing sport to Saudi Arabia, using sport to promote tourism, using sport to promote a healthy lifestyle. And all of that is the end goal. And then on the football side, what they want to do first is not become the best league in the world, but they ultimately want to climb up the ladder in terms of league rankings. So the first goal will be to be a top 10 league in the world, then a top 5. And if they move in that progression between now and 2030, once you're in and around the top 5, it's a lot easier to then suddenly keep attracting more and more stars, especially if the stream of money continues. And then suddenly they could end up being one of the top leagues in the world. But that's not an overnight aim. You have to move a little bit slower than that. And this is why it is actually quite a patient project. I think people are misrepresenting it because this is the first window of making moves. So they look bullish. It looks chaotic. It looks crazy. It looks like they're throwing money at everybody, but it will level off and calm down. And once they've built that base of star players, they'll be in a very strong position to challenge some of the more established leagues. And that is ultimately the end goal.
I mean, we could be seeing the likes of Pogba in the league. I mean, did you see the video yesterday when he was being asked? Say yesterday, a few days ago, even though it was jokes and it didn't seem too serious, I think it's something that is a possibility, especially with the way they're moving. I mean, crazy.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this is what I mean about long games. So Pogba said not now for Saudi, but you can never say never. Son at Spurs said not now, but they'll be back for him for sure in 2024. Believe it or not, Bobby Firmino said no originally, and then it became a yes. Steven Gerrard said no originally, and then it became a yes. Sadio Mane has said he's not going to leave.
And then, he was there straight away.
So you've got a lot of narrative where a player may say directly no. The window opened with Sadio Mane saying he wants to stay at Bayern, but now we have to wait and see because there's been an offer made for him. And I think we're going to get a recurrence of this. Henderson, as I said before, rejected it originally, and Liverpool were really confident that there was almost no chance of him deciding to move, especially with the Euros next year. And now he's on the brink of joining Steven Gerrard at Al Ittifaq. Keep an eye on Rafinha. That's one to watch. I understand that Al Ahly have made direct contact with the player, who's always again said he wants to stay at Barcelona. But if Barcelona decide they want to cash in, and that might be a way around their finances this summer, then that could evolve and change. There's no indication yet that they believe they've got a strong chance of success because of the player's position, but it's this never take no for an answer mentality. And players are realizing very quickly, if they say no to begin with, there will be a second offer and sometimes a third offer, which then allows them to, in many cases, get life-changing money.
Well, Ben, I want to say thank you very much for your time. You've been brilliant as always. Please make sure you check out Ben Jacobs' socials. They're all in the description. We will be back again next week. 5 reacts, transfers, all the good talk. Joel Beya signing out. Peace.